Decimalisation. We call it decimalisation. Decimalisation.
D-Day. D-Day. D-Day.
15th of February 1971.
30 years ago, Britain underwent a seismic economic shift. It fell to the housewife's favourite to announce the news.
5 new pennies are like a shilling, and 10 new pence is a 2-bob bill. A 50-pence piece hasn't got a milling, it's 7-sided and a half a quid.
This is the story of the moment when the pound changed forever. It's a story of high politics.
It was, I think, the worst speech I made in 11 years in Parliament.
And high finance.
Can I ask you what it's like on the floor today? That's pretty chaotic.
Of beleaguered housewives.
This is the new 2-penny piece. And what is this worth in present money? Do you know?
No.
And decimal dollies.
And how much is that worth, the 10-penny one?
Well, that's the equivalent of our 2-shilling piece now.
It's also a story of dogged resistance.
It was rather like the tide coming in.
And unlikely heroes.
People felt extraordinarily strongly about it, and for some people it was the end of civilization as they knew it.
For some, D-Day was like a foreign invasion. When it came, they fought it not on the beaches, but on the high street. In Shoreham, on the Sussex coast, the centre of resistance was a gents' outfitters. Owner Paul Plum refused to accept the new money. He had little doubt the country was right behind him.
We had a lady phone up last week to want to know just where her shop was so she'd come over because we were registering a protest that was reflective of 90% of the population that are walking about today but just haven't got the guts to get up and say so, that we don't want this thing.
Plum's lone stand against decimalisation brought in sackloads of letters in which the Britain of pounds, shillings and pence spoke loud and clear.
Dear sir, as you say, it's a lot of nonsense. What's the matter with the English people that we allow ourselves to be pushed around like this?
For Plum and his supporters, decimalisation was nothing less than a conspiracy against Britishness.
Dear Mr. Plum, there is not the slightest need to alter our money and no call for it whatsoever from the public. But Harold Wilson, the little communist thug that he is, comes along and decided to turn everything upside down.
Today, Plum enjoys spooling through his home movies of Shoreham from 40 years ago. They remind him of a time when Britain was a different country. Back then, you could buy your home for just £3,000. A pint was a shilling, or 5p in today's money, out of an average wage of £18 a week. But Plum's Britain was changing. People had never had it so good. A different world beckoned. In Whitehall, plans were afoot for a more modern nation. After more than 100 years of debate, the men at the ministry agreed it was time for Britain to abandon the old LSD money, pounds, shillings and pence. Britain's economic rivals used decimal systems, 100 cents to the dollar, 100 pfennigs to the mark. But in Britain, there were 20 shillings to the pound, 12 pennies to the shilling, making 240 pennies to the pound. The pound system dated back quite literally to the Dark Ages, but had become an institution on which an empire had been built. By 1960, the days of empire were long over. Former colonies like South Africa were free to ditch LSD and join the modern world. In 1961, Harold Macmillan's Conservative government declared that the time had finally come for the old country to catch up. Britain was to go decimal.
Do you think that Britain should change over to the decimal coinage?
Yes, I think it'd be better for the people in general, so I mean. It'd be easier for changing. with all these farthings and half pennies?
I think it should remain the way it is. It will be too confusing if they change it.
Well, I don't think it's necessary. After all, every housewife knows 12 pennies make a shilling and 24 halfpennies make a shilling. Why should she have to make things complicated?
Well, are you in favour then or against it?
Well, I'm not against it. I'm not in favour. I mean...
Just going to see which way the wind blows.
Be careful, you know what I mean? No, I'm not in favour. I'm not against it.
What do you think? Do you think that it's going to be easier for the housewife?
Well, I'm asking you, I'm not a housewife,
but
madam.
Now I can see you're not. You wear the wrong suit.
The government appointed a special committee led by the eminent scientist and businessman Lord Halsbury to decide how the change should take place. It was then that one of decimalisation's unsung heroes got the call.
When the Treasury were looking for someone to help on Lord Halsbury's committee of inquiry, my name came up. Perhaps they didn't want to spare any of their own bright young things.
Noel Moore wasn't traditional civil service material. The son of a stonemason, he grew up in a small Yorkshire town. He was in the graduate fast stream at the post office when he was invited to be secretary to the Halsbury Committee. He shared an office in the Treasury with his deputy, John Remington. Decimalisation may have been a modern idea, but Whitehall preferred the old ways.
The offices in the Treasury were pretty austere places. And in these rooms there was a fire, a coal fire. But what there wasn't was a poker. About twice a day, a little old man would come in, clutching the poker, and he would poke the fire. He'd poke it at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he'd poke it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and never otherwise could you poke the fire. And I suppose that was Treasury parsimony.
The committee tackled just one issue: how to go decimal. There were many options. Which would be best for Britain?
The inquiry wasn't asked to state whether there should be a decimal currency or not. That decision had already been taken. It was just how to do it. I don't think everybody foresaw all the issues that would arise.
In all, the committee considered 25 decimal systems. Two favourites emerged. In order to choose between them, the committee commissioned research from behavioural psychologist Dr. Sheila Jones.
Dr. Jones, who was doing all the experiments on this, was an expert in what's called cognition. And cognition is all about how you can recognise, how quick you are on the uptake in recognising some new situation.
Dr. Jones recruited volunteer housewives to shop under lab conditions. She monitored them as they used the two systems. The results clearly showed one was the easiest to learn, the 10 shilling system. This system took nearly 3 times less long to master, which made it the preferred choice of consumer groups and retailers. The virtue of the 10 shilling system was its simplicity. The 20 shillings that made up the pound were halved. These 10 shillings were then each divided into 10 smaller units. 100 of these then became the new basic unit of the new money. So, 2 new units equaled 1 old pound.
In come the dollars and in come the cents to replace the pounds and the shillings and the pence. Be prepared, folks.
When Australia decided to go decimal, it chose the 10 shilling system. It was simply the best choice for the consumer. But consumer needs cut no ice with the Bank of England and the Treasury. The system would mean scrapping the pound, a prospect which filled the pinstripe brigade with dread.
The governor of the Bank of England came and spoke in fairly severe terms about the fact that the pound was, first of all, a reserve currency, and secondly, it was traded all over the world. An awful lot of people who didn't fully understand currency transactions still understood that the pound was a symbol of powerful things, something in which they could rely, you see.
As far as the Bank of England was concerned, Britain's international prestige and financial security depended on finding a decimal system that kept the pound. For the pound to survive decimalisation, 240 pennies would have to become 100 new pence. That's when things got complicated. A new pence would be worth an awkward 2.4 old pennies. So an extra unit of currency, the halfpence, would have to be introduced. But at least the pound would survive.
The debate between pound versus 10 shillings lasted for a very long time, and it was really very fierce. People felt extraordinarily strongly about it, and for some people it was the end of civilization as they knew it.
So fierce was the argument that it split the Halsbury Committee. Their report failed to make a unanimous recommendation, and the Conservative government shelved the decimalisation project altogether. Around 1963, the 1960s finally began. As hemlines climbed higher and higher, the Beatles became kings of the new pop world. For the first time in years, there was a Labour government in power with a Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, who promised to modernise the nation.
The Britain that is going to be forged in the white heat of this revolution will be no place for restrictive practices or for outdated methods on either side of industry.
Certainly decimalisation was part of the idea of modernisation. I mean, before the Labour government came to power at that stage, Wilson made a great thing about the white heat of the technological revolution. When he came to power, he actually did damn all about it, but it was certainly part of the image that he projected.
In 1966, Chancellor Jim Callaghan finally announced that Britain was to go decimal in 4 years' time. But he didn't say how, and the fierce debate over which system to use was reignited. One political party was all for the 10-shilling system and for scrapping the pound: the Conservatives.
The 10-bob system was the best system. It was easier to have a transitional period where people were more familiar with the coins. There were fewer new coins. But the government felt that it was important to maintain the pound unit because of its international prestige.
Since coming to power, Labour had been struggling to establish its economic credibility. It was having to defend sterling from attack by currency speculators. One answer was to devalue the pound, but the political consequences were unthinkable.
You must remember that during all this time, we were battling, in effect, battling to save the pound. Sterling was under pressure, remitted occasionally for a bit, but basically it was under pressure during the whole of that time.
Sir Sam Goldman was one of Callaghan's chief advisers at the Treasury. He was convinced that sterling would suffer if the new, as yet unnamed, 10-shilling unit was adopted.
One of the stumbling blocks that the protagonists of the 10 shillings had to meet was what to call it. And there was a lot of debate about this. No one really could think of a suitable name that would match the pound sterling and its international significance and the role that it played.
Some of the proposed names for the 10-shilling unit came straight out of the history books. Favourites were the Noble and the Royal. But whatever the name, opponents of the 10-shilling system were convinced that replacing the pound would be seen as a devaluation by the back door.
What was wrong with the name the Royal?
Everything.
What do you mean?
It's a piece of nonsense to change, to go over from the pound to the Royal. That would really have led to riots in the street.
What's in a name, though? What's in a name?
Well, you may ask that, but you haven't been involved in trying to sustain, run an international reserve currency.
For me, the pound is a familiar unit, as it is for 53 million other people in this country. It's known throughout the world, and there's no reason to change the pound unit for any other purpose.
The 1966 decimal currency white paper made it clear that Callaghan favoured keeping the pound. But he still had to win the argument in Parliament, where the 10-shilling system commanded strong support on both sides of the House.
I thought the intellectual case for the 10-shilling unit was stronger. I think probably most of my colleagues in the Labour government and the Labour Party would have accepted the 10-shilling unit. The Conservatives, the opposition, were in favour of the 10-shilling unit.
I think it would have been better, and we said so at the time, if the House of Commons and indeed the House of Lords had been able to make a decision on which unit we should have on a free vote.
But once Callaghan had made up his mind with Wilson's support that we go for the pound, well, it became party policy, and as usual when the whips are on, it doesn't matter what backbenchers think or what minor government junior ministers think, it goes through, and that's what happened. So the pound became the unit.
4 months after the decision, disaster struck. Sterling took a nosedive on the international markets.
Hi, sir, BBC. Can you tell us like on the floor today?
What's it like on the floor today?
Sorry, I can't tell.
Hey, what's it like on the floor today? That's a confusion at the moment. Can I ask you what it's like on the floor today?
That's pretty chaotic.
In November, Callaghan conceded defeat and devalued. The myth of the pound was shattered, along with Labour's economic reputation. But decimalisation would go ahead anyway, and with a flawed system that some predicted would bring economic and social chaos. In December 1966, the Labour government set up the Decimal Currency Board. Its job was to oversee the conversion of LSD Britain to pounds and new pence Britain. Its 50 civil servants had just 4 years to get Britain ready for its second D-Day. To mastermind the operation, they called in the expert.
I was delighted when someone from the Treasury rang me up and said, would you like to come and resume?
It's like your calling, really, isn't it?
Yes. Well, yes, it's altogether, decimalisation took 7.5 years of my career. Getting on for a quarter of it, which is not insignificant, to use a Whitehall expression.
You change people's money. I mean, that's money's next to sex. That's what's closest to people's hearts, isn't it? So you need somebody who's going to say everything's going to be fine. And that's exactly what Noel Moore did.
Moore and his team investigated every tiny aspect of the decimal changeover. Board engineers became experts at converting machinery, while the research group conducted experiments to see how shoppers coped with the new coins.
One lady set up a stall with dual pricing and so on, and everybody in the research group went along to see how they would manage actually using coins in day-to-day transactions. And one or two of the staff were, I think, slightly thrown by the fact that most of the items on this stall from which they were selling seemed to be items of female underwear. And I think they were put off their stride. You know, this is 30 years ago. People acted differently then.
Before Britain goes over to decimal currency in 1971, some 6,000 million new coins will be minted. The approved designs are engraved onto plaster casts, and the final plaster mould given to the Royal Mint, so that the mass production of the coins can begin.
The Royal Mint had to prepare for the largest change of small change ever undertaken. They'd worked out a plan of phasing out old coins and introducing new ones before the changeover, nicknamed D-Day. The first new coins rolled out in April 1968. They replaced the shilling and the 2-shilling piece.
We're not going decimal until 1971. But the Decimal Currency Board is preparing for the changeover by putting these 2 new coins into circulation now. 5 new pennies equals a shilling, 10 new pennies equals 2 shillings.
But the most controversial new coin was the replacement for the old 10-shilling note, the new 50-pence piece.
I don't think more research has ever been done on any coin before introducing it than was done on the shape of the 50-pence piece.
Psychologists developed tests to find a shape that wouldn't get confused with other coins. Volunteer housewives fumbled around in bags, testing out the distinctiveness of 4, 6, 10 and 12-sided shapes. The winner was a rank outsider.
I believe it was a member of the board called Conway who came up with the 7-sided coin, and everybody in the board, myself included, thought that was just terrific. I mean, it was really neat. An equilateral curve heptagon, everybody got that very quickly. And the fact that it was rolled like a round coin and you could feel it like a coin with sides. Design was the name of the game in the 60s. New things were good.
To start with, 120 million of these 50 new penny coins will be minted, the first coins of this unusual shape the world has ever seen.
The shape might have been revolutionary and oh so 1960s, but for the design, the Royal Mint played it safe.
They reckoned at the Battle of Britain fellas used to get what you've got.
It was big news in the Rover's return when the strange new coin was introduced in October 1969.
2 slimline tonks.
No, it's my turn, love.
Aye. Try pushing your foreign coins off on somebody else.
But that's not a foreign coin. It's worth 10 shillings.
Aye.
It's one of the new ones.
By the heck. 50 new pence. What will they think of next?
The public was equally bemused.
What do you think of this then, the new 10 bob bid?
Well, I think it's absolutely rubbish.
Why?
I think the people that designed it want to go to school and learn how to do the job.
What's so wrong with it?
Well, what is wrong with it?
Too much like a 2 shilling piece for a start.
Mm-hmm.
Complicate all the old ladies with money. It's hopeless for them if they get more than 1 2 shilling piece in a purse.
I'm not very keen on them myself. I like the old 10 bob better.
Or the dear old 10 bob, the dear old half quid, the 10 shilling note. Yeah, well, the 10 bob note was a note that you were always glad to have in your pocket. The last 10 shilling note was taken home by me. I put it in a wallet or a note case or something like that. I've got it somewhere anyway. The 10 shilling note was a regal thing, and you compare that with that dreadful thing we've got today with 7 sides, you know.
We were taken aback when the public reaction and the press reaction was as unfavourable. It was almost hysterical reaction, if the truth were known.
I remember when the 50p first came in, the words disaster and monstrosity appeared in headlines. The Prime Minister's opponents said that it was like Wilson, you know, it was two-faced, many-sided and slippery.
I don't like them. They're too easy to get mixed up with half crowns and 2 shilling pieces.
When you've some more silver in your hand and put this in with your hand, you can't tell whether you've a 2 shilling piece in or a 10 shilling.
I seem to remember a story in the press about someone who'd trained a chimpanzee unfailingly to distinguish between the shape of a florin and a 50p coin. Now, if chimpanzees can do it, you know, it's not too bad for the rest of us.
Up to now, from the public's point of view, little seems to have been done by the board, but behind the scenes, a lot of preparation has been going on.
With work on the new coinage well underway, the Decimal Currency Board set about winning hearts and minds in the business world.
The most important contribution to the changeover that the Decimal Currency Board did was persuading businesses that they needed to take action early. It's not just that their machines would be affected. It's also that their accounting systems, their cash handling systems would be affected. Their prices would be affected. Their payroll would be affected. Their relations with banks who were going to decimalise on D-Day would be affected. It was a gradual, grinding, detailed process. But you had to get people to do something and to do it early.
We'll see there are 3 denominations in the LSD system and only 2 in the pound-pence system.
Up and down the country, tens of thousands of lecturers gave hundreds of thousands of talks. Britain's small businessmen and business ladies thrilled to the nitty-gritty of the new system. And then came the highly charged battle of the sixpenny piece. As the newly appointed Labour minister in charge of decimalisation, it fell to Dick Taverne to announce that the sixpence was to be phased out. It was not a popular decision.
You get a certain sort of emotional argument surrounding coins. Look at the campaign now, saves the pound. Well, it doesn't terribly matter whether you have a pound or a euro. There may be good economic reasons against or for having a euro, but just the familiarity with an old coin like a pound is rather irrational. Well, that sort of argument surfaced very much for the sixpence. We must hang on to our sixpence. And it became the sort of symbol for the housewife. The housewife wants to keep the sixpence. It loves the sixpence. And a great emotional campaign of Save the Sixpence was launched.
Worries about scrapping the sixpence became more serious in early 1970. London Transport announced that old machines that took sixpences couldn't be modified to take new decimal coppers. Fares would have to double to a shilling, or 5p, as a result.
London Transport were entitled to take the view that they did, but of course it put into the public mind that it meant higher prices inevitably as a result of decimalisation. And that was not what we wanted the public to think, least of all coming towards a general election.
The general election was just 4 months away. The Conservative Party, which had once argued for scrapping the pound, now came out fighting for the sixpence.
The Conservatives thought they wanted a good thing. They were sort of linking decimalisation with popular fears of inflation. And they launched a separate debate to criticise the government for the coins which were being introduced as part of decimalisation.
The vote in the Commons was around the sixpence was the most serious moment of the whole campaign. The old Evening News took a poll, and of course everybody wanted the sixpence.
It was said that the housewife was up in arms about the sixpence, the consumers got worked up about the sixpence, and a lot of Labour backbenchers now got worked up about the sixpence.
Bill Rogers, a minister at the Treasury, had the job of defending the decision to scrap the sixpence during the debate in Parliament.
I had a message on that day at about 12 o'clock, I think it would be, at the end of the morning. Yes, Cabinet had confirmed the sixpence was going to go. So I knew my brief.
But nothing was ever that straightforward with Harold Wilson. After Cabinet, the Prime Minister met Lena Jager, the ringleader of the Labour backbench sixpence supporters.
Instead of saying, sorry, the sixpence is going, he led her to believe in some way that there was scope still for argument and the sixpence might be saved. Now, I was waiting to make my speech, and I saw the Evening News, and the headline said, "The sixpence is saved." And the story was that Mrs. Jager had come out of number 10 saying the Prime Minister had agreed the sixpence was saved. It was, I think, the worst speech I made in 11 years in Parliament. I couldn't say the Prime Minister's been lying, but I could hardly say to my own backbencher, "You've misunderstood the matter." It was such a mess.
Despite Rogers' blushes, the government won the debate, and then promptly did a U-turn. The sixpence could stay. After all, there was an election to be won. In the event, saving the sixpence did Labour little good. Ted Heath arrived in Downing Street with just 7 months to go before D-Day. Despite previous Conservative policy on the 10-shilling system, the new government decided it was too late to change.
I regret still, personally, that we didn't bite the bullet in a sense and go for the 10-bob system. I think we would have been better able to cope with inflationary pressures had we done so.
For those who aren't trained, Monday the 15th of February could be a Black Monday, with the following weeks just nightmares.
With D-Day now just weeks away, the Decimal Currency Board was having nightmares of its own. Ignorance and hostility were widespread.
Can you tell me something about decimalisation?
No, I can't tell you. I don't know nothing about it.
Nothing at all?
No.
If you'd gone out and asked people, do you want to change to decimal currency, 9 out of 10 people would have said no.
Well, what about your customers? Will you be able to give them the right change?
Well, the customers won't understand it either. If I won't be able to understand it, will they?
You could perhaps, with hindsight, say there wasn't enough democracy in the decimal currency project from the beginning.
D-Day, D-Day, D-Day.
People really hadn't been brought along with the project. They'd just been told that it was going to happen.
I thought it's sometime in June, but I'm not quite sure offhand, no. I can't really say, definitely no.
I suppose you could say that early 1970s and middle of 1970 were rather dark days for the Decimal Currency Board.
June 44.
There was a kind of faltering, a slight hesitation, a wondering.
June 6, 1944.
15th of February 1971.
The build-up to the second D-Day Britons will endure this century, D for decimalisation, is proof that there's more than one way to mess around with figures.
I must confess, Barbara, that I don't understand the decimal coins. Now, I wonder if you could tell me, I mean, that's that one there. That's
the 5.
That's 5 pence. Now, this one here, this is the 10-penny one.
Yes, that's twice the 5-penny one.
And how much is that worth, the 10-penny one?
Well, that's the equivalent of our 2-shilling piece now.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about, have you got any more down here, or are they all the same, basically?
No,
a number of retailers decided that they would go in for other little gimmicks, like having girls scantily dressed, wandering around with semblances of coins on them and so on, and this all helped.
Decimal dollies, as they came to be known, shimmied and shivered up and down high streets in the middle of winter, and the media loved them. But for housewives, things were different.
There was a division in 1970, I suppose, in people's minds between the dolly bird and the housewife, and there wasn't much in between. And that's the way it got reflected in the decimal currency campaign. We didn't really do any research on what said housewife might think or feel or what. It was just kind of odd.
When you are given change in new money, it may sound rather odd. So if you're puzzled by 31.5, 32, 33, 35, 40, and 10 is 50, and 50 is a pound, think decimal.
The new decimal money will be with us on D-Day, Decimal Day, the 15th of February, 1971.
Now some people who were feeling very bright have put their heads together just to make things right. They have made it easy for every citizen, because all we have to do is count from 1 to 10.
On the 1st of January 1971, the Decimal Currency Board launched the biggest advertising campaign the country had seen. There were no cartoons, no gimmicks, just the blunt message: Britain had 6 weeks to learn how to think decimal. School children were drafted in to show old-age pensioners that using decimals was easy.
Hello, my name's Anne. I've come to tell you about the new decimal currency.
Research showed that elderly people were scared of the changeover. One pensioners' organisation announced that decimalisation was worse than pornography.
One old lady apparently said, "Why don't you wait till we all die off and then do the change, you know?"
Hello, my old darling. Hello. How are you today? Oh, all alone, I see. Oh, what do the neighbours think? And where were you lot on Saturday? On the razzle-dazzle? Well,
Granny Gets the Point was aimed at helping old people overcome their fears.
There's a love. Now, it's stand by with your slide rules and ready reckoners, because from today we're decimal only.
Oh.
So let's see now.
Huge demand from pensioners' organisations made it the most popular government information film ever made.
Simple, really, isn't it? But some of them, you know, they got no idea. One old duck told me she'd been saving her pennies for months because she thought that from today they'd be worth tuppence halfpenny each. Can you believe it?
If the national press was to be believed, Granny's distress was shared by the rest of the country.
Don't worry, Mrs. Mortimer. You ain't the only one.
There was a lot of coverage in the press about the amount that people didn't know. And there was some suggestion that the preparations had gone wrong and that there would be a disaster on D-Day. But we were fairly secure because it had always been planned to wait until the last moment to do the publicity for the ordinary shopper.
This is the new 2-penny piece. Now, what is this worth in present money? Do you know?
No.
This is the 1-penny piece. Do you know what that is worth?
Tuppence.
Tuppence.
No.
I'm afraid not. No. One new pence is 2.4 in the old pence. What about this? That's
No idea.
The new halfpenny. What's that worth? At present money.
Tuppence.
No.
No.
1.2 pence. And what about the decimal currency? Are you looking forward to its introduction?
No, not at all. No.
On the Wednesday before D-Day, the final push was on. Operation Checkpoint was a 4-day campaign designed to clear a record 12 million cheques and to change every single British bank account from LSD to decimal. At the same time, stores changed prices and tills and stocked up on the 4,000 million new copper coins that would come into circulation on D-Day in 4 days' time.
I suppose it's like going into bat in a test match or something. You can never be sure that things will be all right. But inevitably there was slight feeling, well, you know, is there something we've not thought of?
LSD is dead and gone. Today is D-Day -1. LSD is dead and gone. Today is D-Day -1.
With 12 hours to go, Moore took a final chance to calm the nation's nerves on the BBC's D-Day -1.
That decimal currency is a matter of practice, not theory. And when we've done a few shopping transactions with shop assistants who've been specially trained to help us, we'll wonder what all the fuss was about.
For Noel Moore, the next 24 hours would be the greatest test of his civil service career.
I think the housewife will get used to it in about 6 weeks.
Don't know nothing about it. Well, I think it's absolutely rubbish.
Now then, if I give you a 50p piece, my change ought
On
to
D-Day itself, like the folks on the street, the nation thought decimal.
15.5p.
Yeah, very good, top of the class. By gum, there's no flies on you two, is there? Doesn't have to be. Money doesn't come easy to us like it does to some folk I could mention.
We all came in, our faces shining and well scrubbed in our best suits and ties, and sat there waiting for the phones to ring on that Tuesday, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. It was the weirdest feeling in the world. You know, you're sitting there expecting the phone. It's like giving a party, and really nobody turning up.
21 new pence.
To everyone's surprise, it was business as usual, more or less.
I thought we were going to get in a real flurry, you know. All my stomach was going over this morning, but, you know, it worked out very well.
How are you getting on with the new currency this morning?
Not at all. This is the first time, and we're frightened.
Why are you frightened?
I just asked her how much that is in English. She said 13 new pence.
How much is 13 new pence?
I don't know.
And one was clearly watching to see how it worked, because one wanted to monitor the extent to which people had real problems. But in the event, they didn't.
I well remember, I think it was on D-Day, members of the board staff sitting around in the room where we had a television, and we'd seen the early news or something, And we found ourselves watching the magic roundabout. Somehow there was nothing else to do. You know, it was over. We'd finished. 7.5 years of my life had disappeared. It wasn't a big event. It wasn't like the other D-Day.
If anyone had a bad D-Day, it was the press, who scraped the bottom of the barrel for a story.
Mr. Phillips, what happened this morning?
Well, my daughter came across to me and she said that she swallowed a coin. I said, what kind of coin? She said, a new 2-piece coin.
Well, when she went to the hospital, what did they say to her?
Well, the receptions were kind of, because it was D-Day, we thought something a bit funny. And we thought they were trying to be funny with us, you know, first off.
Good heavens. What an extraordinary big deal, you know. How amazing that you can change a country's entire currency and the biggest story is about some mother swallowing a coin.
But it was the calm before the storm. It took a few days, but the tabloids finally found the story they'd been looking for. The nation was being diddled. Newspapers claimed that when LSD prices were being converted to decimal prices, they were being rounded up rather than rounded down.
I'll tell you something, and since they've done this decimal system, mate, since they've rounded the figures up, we're all swindled. It's a swindle.
Nonsense. Yeah, it's not, mate. He's quite right. Look at that. Portion of beans, 4p. Now, last week, that was 8p. Now, that should be 3.5p.
He's right, you know. They've even stuck half a p on the beans.
Soon there was a war on diddling. Fleet Street tabloids created decimal watchdogs to sniff out the cheats. The Decimal Currency Board distributed shoppers' tables by the tens of millions. They gave the closest old to new conversion on all figures up to £1. But despite all this, people were convinced that life after D-Day was more expensive.
I don't know what's coming in this country. Anything to put the prices up, that's what it is. See that up there? Cup of tea, 7p. 7p. Now, 7p should be 2 3/4p. But is it? Since they've rounded it up, 7p now becomes 3p.
You do talk a lot of nonsense.
How can a canteen operate on quarter peas? There's no such thing.
Well, I don't see why. We've got split peas.
I can't think why people should believe that decimalisation was a source of inflation. It patently wasn't. If you look at the figures in terms of increases in the cost of living index, or whatever it was called at the time, the index for February and March of 71 was, if anything, smaller than it had been for a long time before and some time later. The price of things increases. This is one of the great lessons of history.
Well, since decimalisation in the spring, have you noticed much difference in the cost of living?
Yes, definitely. Practically doubled what it was.
Well, I definitely think that they put on the extra pennies.
How much difference does it make to you as a housewife?
Quite a lot. I was thinking it makes about £1 a week difference.
Do you think the shopkeepers are at fault?
Well, I don't know. I expect they'll be millionaires by the time they finish.
Research carried out at the time concluded that there had been no increase in the price of everyday goods. But the belief that decimalisation caused inflation was widespread and remarkably long-lived.
Because the currency had been confused, the nation were being confused, the nation were being conned. And where you go today, when you look around at the prices they are today, they are still spiralling. And if you took that whole of inflation right the way back, you can spiral it right back to the day that decimalisation came in.
Down in Shoreham, where Paul Plum's shop used to be, you can now buy tiramisu and cappuccinos. It's a far cry from the days when Plum became notorious for his refusal to accept the new money. But despite his fierce opposition, it seemed Britain had moved on after all.
I would have thought the change had gone pretty smoothly. Most customers had now got the hang of decimal currency.
This is typically British. This is what everybody thinks, that it's going very smoothly, but it jolly well isn't going smoothly. The average person just doesn't know, they don't know where they are about it, and they're saying, oh, well, up to the present moment they've been saying perhaps it'll get easier, but it won't, it'll worsen.
In this whole project, you have one shopkeeper, Paul Plum, who is, I suppose, remembered to this day as the shopkeeper who didn't change. If that had taken off at all, there would have been Paul Plums all over Britain. They just weren't. And I think that is the most amazing thing. There was only one plum.
Have you yet had a specific case of a customer saying to you, thank heavens, Mr. Plum, you've gone back to LS if not to LSD?
A specific case? This morning here, we've had dozens of customers coming in and saying, all strength to your elbow, aren't we glad about this? And from a town here, right near 6 miles away, we had a lady phone.
Plum maintained his lone stand against the decimals for 2 long years, but resistance was futile.
It was rather like the tide coming in. The tide gradually came up, and didn't matter how much Canute put his feet out, the tide came over him, didn't it? And so we went on. But, you know, I can honestly tell you that even today, I'm not really used to it after all these years.
Seedless tangerines, 2 and 6 each, ladies. Come on, ladies, 2 and 6 each, a bit of seedless tangerine. 10 shillings a pound seedless grape. Come on, 10 shillings a pound bit of seedless. 6 shillings a pound bananas, ladies. Come on, 6 shillings a pound. 12 shillings to you, sweetheart.
12 shillings, that's 70p. 12 shillings. Christ, it's been so long now.
6 shillings a pound.
6 shillings. Oh, that's all right.
Don't you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. Of course I do remember it more than you do.
37.5 new pence.
Yeah.
What's that in old money?
37.5 new pence would be 50 pence.
Like 7 and something, wasn't it? It was 7, 6, 7 and 70 or something like that.
And the bananas 6 shillings a pound. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it?
I'll have some of these.
And that's 10 shillings a pound.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah. Back in the good old days.
I think we're curious folk in England. We really resist change. And we sort of love nostalgia. We like our nostalgia. There are still people today who would be nostalgic for the old currency, although they couldn't count in it. But then, you know, in practice, we actually accept change rather readily.
I really had forgotten how to convert. It's stupid. Really? I mean, how long is it? 1950 something, wasn't it? The decimalisation come in?
1968, 69, 70?
71.
1971 it was.
That's 30 years ago nearly, isn't it?
And you can find out more about funny money by logging on to channel4.com/next step. Now, when a journalist tries to sniff out a juicy crime story, her probing nose gets in the way of police business. NYPD Blue is next here on 4.